All right. So, welcome everyone to BSW Connect's first online Q&A session. I'm Louise from On Time Admin and BSW Connect, and today we have Kingsley from RWK Accountancy and Shaun Brodison from Aussie Home Loans to answer your questions about finance and banking. If you are joining us live, you're going to be on mute. However, if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat box. You can do that by sort of moving towards the bottom of your screen and clicking the chat button, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. If you're watching this recorded, please feel free to email in any questions that you do have, and we will attempt to get those answered for you as well. So these sessions are going to be short and to the point to give you the information during these extremely challenging times. Let's dive right in, guys. So this one's going to go to both of you. What situations are you seeing out there for businesses and business owners already?
Well, I'm seeing, I guess, broadly three categories of small businesses. The hardest ones are the people that, I guess, have, in a sense, lost their business through, so that they're doing something where you have to get close to people or touch people, and if they didn't get told straight out they're not allowed to do it anymore 24 hours ago, so few customers are coming through the door that it's almost effectively that anyway. So hopefully we can do some things to help those people probably hibernate. Second category, I suppose, is a smaller business that's not at least banned from being in business, shall we say. They're still doing something you're allowed to do. It's just a question of how much business they've lost because it's got damned hard out there. And then probably third is possibly a bit bigger businesses that maybe they're dealing a little bit with government, or bigger businesses, longer term contracts and things, and they aren't necessarily really feeling it yet, but they know they're going to, and trying to work out how much and what they're going to do. It's a mixed bag of those things. I'm also seeing some people have some wins, in a sense, which we can get into perhaps a little bit more. We get into the detail where they're a very small employer and are about to get $10,000 tax-free, and then another $10,000 tax-free, even though they don't pay a lot of wages. But mostly it's pretty tough. What about you, Shaun? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, well, we're based in town on Victoria Street, so we deal a lot with retail along the street. Look, at the moment, I think there's a lot of fear out there. A lot of people, a lot of uncertainty is the biggest thing. No one really knows how it's all going to play out. So I think for people that are loaded up with debt, there's a lot of fear there. There are solutions there, which we'll come to in a minute. But yeah, we're just seeing a lot of fear and uncertainty out there at the moment. A, from how do you pay your bills, and B, how much income are we actually going to be able to make in the next 6 months? So those two questions combined are not a great combination, but yeah, I think everyone's going to be in a different phase as we go along this.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot of fear out there and a lot of people wondering how they continue forward as well myself. So Kingsley, you just touched on the stimulus package. So do you want to give us a quick recap of what that actually is? Because there's been two released by the federal government as well as one from the West Australian government now.
Yeah. So I get, not getting really bogged down again. There's now, people almost might feel like we're drowning in information about it, but I guess the chief flagship thing, of course, is this thing with the wages, where through your business activity statement, you're getting now 100% credit for the tax you've been withholding out of your workers' wages, up to $50,000 credit by the end of June, and then having been in the system in that period, then you should get the same amount of money again over the next 3 to 4 months in the next financial year. So again, possibly another up to $50,000. Both sets tax-free. Probably key thing people need to bear in mind is you're not necessarily going to get a credit in your bank account or a check for that. It's a credit on your BAS. So if we say someone has got GST on their BAS, let's say $15,000, and they're going to get a $10,000 bonus, and that $10,000 bonus is going to come off the GST. So that would imply, well, I've probably got to change my sums a little bit and go even higher. So they've got $30,000 GST, $10,000 wages tax. they're now going to get a $10,000 bonus on top of that. So they owed 30 of GST. They're now going to get the $10,000. They've got to pay the 10 wages tax, but they're going to get a bonus off that. So they're only left with having to pay the GST bit in that. So some people will get actual refunds if they're quite small, as I talked about. So let's say you've only got one employee, it might even be yourself, and you just pulled out $1,000 tax withheld out of your little wage you've been doing for yourself. You're going to get, in that case, a $10,000 credit, because there's a minimum and you must get at least the 10. So in that case, if their GST is only, say, $5,000 or something or other, then they're on track for, they've got the $1,000 they've got to pay, the $5,000 GST, so that's $6,000 they've got to pay, but they're just about to get a $10,000 bonus, so they'll get a refund of the $4,000. So pretty good.
That could be pretty significant for some of those smaller businesses out there.
Yeah, it is. That and then they may get more between now and June if they're paying a fair bit more. But of course, that little person has got to get over $10,000 of withholding before they get any extra, which they may or may not do. Time will tell. Other key things, I guess, then the other category we talked a little bit is the people that I feel most sorry for, that have sort of almost been banned from being in business. Probably the best, and they aren't employing people, so they're not going to get that bonus, the cash flow boost, as they call it. They are going to be able to access, hopefully, well, you would think they would, the Centrelink to the job seeker, which has been boosted up as well. I'll get the 1,100 a fortnight, I think it's gone to. If you can show your business is down sort of 20% or worse, and of course, if you've been banned from business, that's not going to be hard to do. So that would be the main one for most people that really packs a punch. The other one floating around, I think people need to be a little cautious around, is you can potentially access $10,000 of your superannuation, both in this financial year and then possibly coming back for another 10 in the second. I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of the traps floating around, and we'll talk about that further on. There's also the things like the equipment and so forth. I think now that's probably, that was when the government was probably a little more hopeful. I don't know if many people are going to rush out and buy equipment now to get fast depreciation. There could be a few businesses that, if you're a business that's benefiting from the hoarders, you're selling things that hoarders like, then you might be about to have a great year. And perhaps you will go and buy some equipment, but obviously that's not terribly many businesses. And then probably the other things to not forget is the things you could do even before the stimulus package. And the chief one is going back and varying your previous business activity statements or instalment activities. So you're in business and you've been sending off money every quarter on your profits for your tax on your profits. That would have been your income ultimately. The first 2 quarters have gone pretty good. You've sent off quite a bit of money to the tax office. You are legally now allowed to go back and say, gee, I'm having a shocker and I need that back. So you can go and vary them so much that you can get back what you paid in quarter 1 and quarter 2.
And we recommend on that case that you seek advice from your accountant about that specifically. Go and talk to them about where your current situation is.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, that's a fairly radical move. For some people, that will be obvious if you're the massage person who's just been stopped from doing business, but others, that will need some science behind it.
Okay, so what are these traps you're talking about, like the super? Where can people fall down?
The super one, I think in particular, is just, there's a little bit worrying. I'm pleased to say no clients of my own have said this, but I've had a number of conversations already recounted with me where people are sort of licking their lips at being able to get $10,000 out of their super and not really intending it for what it's supposed to be for. They think a new beauty, I can get 10 grand and I'm going to go and buy a boat or something. I don't know what it is. So,
because that's what we should all do. We should all be doing at this time. Is maybe we all need a boat to be able to get off the mainland. I don't know.
The stimulus, call the boat the stimulus or something. But it's also, if you stop to think about it, of course, a terrible time to be pulling money out of your super, because it's all of them have been whacked. And to pull $10,000 out of your super now is probably what, it's like the equivalent of pulling 20,000 out 3 or 4 months ago. So Now, there will be some people, they'll have to do it. They are in a diabolical situation and they'll have to do it. But it is something I just saying to people, just woo up a bit before you charge off and do that and think that through. That would be towards the end of my last resort list.
Yeah.
And we'll look. Sorry, Louise.
Sorry, we'll look to have a Q&A session with Kevin Salas, our partner who's a financial advisor, about what that really can look like for people in terms of their superannuation and the longevity of their working lives.
And the other thing I'm just seeing around a little bit with talking to people is, I mean, I'm having clients come to me and quite legitimately saying, Kings, well, you know, we've got to maximise what we get out of this package, and I have no problem with that. But be aware, particularly around the wage thing, that the normal anti-avoidance rules are there, which basically say if the tax office can show that you did something to boost your wages up artificially, whether that's just increasing wages, particularly to, say, a family member or something like that, or putting someone on to wages that wasn't on wages before, and you can't make a commercial reason for doing it. If they can say, well, look, suddenly you put Mary Jane on the books, you've never had her work for you before, she's your sister-in-law, she's not really doing much work, then you could be in diabolical trouble. So remember, you've got to be, any of these things, if you're doing something that makes your wages go up through this period, make sure you can look the tax man in the eye and say, I've got a good commercial reason for doing that.
Yeah, and what we're seeing around town is there's actually quite a lot of restaurants and takeaway, or restaurants that have now become takeaway businesses that are actually putting on people as delivery drivers to help keep their businesses alive. And we think that is a wonderful way to be supporting the local community during these difficult times.
Yeah, and that's exactly, with all the weirdness going on, there is going to be situations where people weirdly, you would think in a sense, face value, have increased their wages, but it's absolutely legitimate.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to Shaun and let's talk about some banking. So Shaun, first up, are the banks giving out money at the moment, or is it just the government?
No, the banks are still lending, so nothing's really changed from a lending perspective. So the banks are still looking, both business and lending and business lending, they're looking to have a deposit. They're looking to make sure you can service the loan, and they're going to check your credit file. So that's the same three criteria that they used 6 months ago, 12 months ago. It's been the same. So for the moment, it's still the same. Future-wise, we don't have enough information yet what the future's going to look like. If you made some assumptions, I'd suggest certain industries might start getting screened. But as of right now, that's not the case. Government-backed loans, what they're going to look like, I think the government's going to back 50% of the loans, which I would assume act as the equity for the loan. So future-wise, we just don't know yet. I would assume it's going to change and be easier to borrow money, but as of right now, it's just business as usual from the banks. They're still lending exactly as they usually would.
All right, perfect. And what are they doing to help people out? I've seen on the news there's all sorts of stuff out there that people are freezing things, deferring loans. What can people do in business and personally with their
Yeah, they're doing a lot. Yeah, to their credit, they're doing a lot. So personally, with home loans, they're allowing 6-month repayment holidays. So there's multiple different banks, and all the banks are going to have different policies, but majority of them are allowing a 6-month repayment holiday. Now, this is on home loans I'm talking. So if you had a home loan, you could phone up the bank, say, look, I'm having trouble making my repayments. They will essentially freeze the repayments for the next 6 months, but you'll still be accruing interest on it. So it's not, your interest is just going to get added onto the loan, and then after 6 months, you'd start your repayments again. And then to account for that extra money, they're going to allow the term to be increased on the back end. So you still be paying interest. It's not taking away from that, but that 6-month break, I think, would be very big for businesses to ride this out, to not have to make home loan repayments from that.
Is there anything out there for business loans?
Yeah, absolutely. Business loans, similar concept. They're dropping the interest rates on a lot of business loans. And the same concept as the repayment holiday. They're allowing that 6-month period. Again, just check with your individual banks on that. The majority of banks are allowing a 6-month break on the business loans. Equipment finance loans, car loans, the majority of stuff in business, if you ask, chances are there's going to have a product there to allow you to extend it. Smaller things, overdrafts dropping in interest rates, which should help cash flow a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of different things. Even merchants, the FOS machines, some of them are freezing the fees on the merchants. So there's a lot of little things out there, but the biggest things really are, from a cash flow perspective, the home loan and the business loan. And if you need to get it frozen for 6 months, the facilities are there. It's just you need to get in contact with the bank to make it happen.
All right, and how do people contact their bank? Should they be calling? Do they go in? What do they do?
Yeah, ideally I would suggest, especially in this environment, call in. Avoid the queues in the banks. That'd be great. But each banks have set up their hardship teams. They've always been there. They've got collection departments. So best bet will be just Google the bank. It'll come up with their generic number. When you get through the generic number, ask for the hardship or the collections team, and they'll have divisions on there to allow you to do that. Just state your case to the banks. In this environment, the best thing to do with the banks is to be upfront. If you try and hide the fact or try and stall them, that's when the troubles come. But I would suggest be really upfront with them, do your cash flow forecasts and know when you're not going to be able to pay them, and then phone them up way before that so you've got things in place. And they'll accommodate you. It's only when you try and deceive the bank or hide things from the bank is when they really start to turn nasty.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is that the sooner you can get a handle on your cash flow and where your business is sitting financially, the better, because you can go and talk to your bank, talk about what you can do and help alleviate some of those cash flow issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And if any business hasn't, I would assume most have, but every business in this environment, I would hope, would have done their cash flow forecasts, especially to know what are their expenses running at, what is their income going to be at, what's their cash burn going to be per month. And ideally, you can cash flow look at your cash flow from there and share that with the bank. That'll help from the bank's point of view, because they'll see that you're organised and you know what you're doing, and they'll believe the case straight away.
Fantastic. So one of the questions we had come in from people is that if someone is running a business that makes less than $50,000 a year, so they're not registered for GST or anything like that, and they're supported by a partner's income, what assistance, stimulus package, that sort of stuff might be out there for them, Kingsley?
If they've got wages, if they're doing a little bit of wages, then they might, as I say, have a nice little win, in the sense that they're probably not paying much in wages, and they'd get the $10,000 this side of June and then another 10 the other. Given that size, though, you'd speculate they probably don't have wages. So this is a situation where I guess if they've been supported by their spouse, again, you'd probably speculate that perhaps the spouse's income is fairly good. So if they go to Centrelink, they could hit the problem that they've said they're not worrying about the assets test, but the income test is still there, and they might find that they get knocked out from getting it, courtesy of their combined partner income possibly. But theoretically, they certainly have the chance, but without knowing all the specifics, I think there's some chance that they might find there's not a lot there in terms of the big two things you can do. They could possibly go back and get their quarter ones and quarter twos of income tax, PAYG that they've already paid. What I didn't talk about before too is you're allowed to defer your BAS's payments for 4 months, sort of no questions asked, so to speak, with the ATO. So slowing down what money might have to go out over the next little bit as well. But in terms of probably the big two things, I think without knowing more, they might miss out on the big two things.
Yeah, so in that situation, we recommend that you seek specific advice from your accountant. And if you don't have an accountant, which some people may not, we can, here at BSW Connect, can definitely assist you with having a free consultation with Kingsley himself to have a look at where your situation is and how we can help you. So like I said, we're keeping this short and to the point today. So I have one last question for you both. We'll go to Shaun first. What are the top 3 things businesses and business owners can do right now to help themselves?
Well, I think number one, like I said, is work out your burn rate. So work out your expenses, work out your income. What are you going to be running at? Number 2, keep the communication open with the banks. If you have got business lending or home lending, speak to them early and let them know where you're at. And number 3, I'd suggest maybe just stay positive. I mean, if you watch the news or you're online on social media, you're going to become suicidal pretty quickly. So maybe just do that in short bursts, I would suggest, and just stay positive and do what you can. I mean, a lot of businesses are changing to online models or delivery models, like you said, in the restaurant. And a bit of thought, we can all find a different source of income somewhere in our business somehow. So positivity will help that.
All right, Kingsley, what are your top three?
Well, very similar to Shaun in terms of number one would be to do that cash flow budget and treat it not only just what your cash burn rate is now, also I'd be doing a sort of like, as the big shows talk about, doing so-called stress testing and saying, right, well, my revenue's dropped 20%, what does it look like? What if my revenue drops to 50%? What does it look like if it drops to 30 or what, I guess you drop down to 30, it almost tells its own answer. But by doing that, also then having a bit of, okay, if it goes down this far, I'm going to have to look at letting poor Mary Jane go, for argument's sake, or these, but knowing what those points are and not finding them out too late. We have seen a little bit around the place on the staffing front that if someone's part-time and not doing a lot of hours and perhaps sort of, earning somewhere around the minimum wage, then they might find that going on the Centrelink gets them as much, if not more money. So one thing a lot of small businesses will be really in torment over at the moment is letting staff go, because in small business, highly likely they're also friends. And I know personally and from clients, it's relatively easier to sack a person who's done a bad job, but sacking a person who's done a really good job for you for the last 10 years, that's hard. But it could be in some cases that you can sit down and map out a bit of a plan and say, well, look, going on to the thing is not the end of the world. It might even be marginally better for you. So there's a few little quirks in the system like that. Also watch out with that, though, that if you have to pay entitlements, it might make your cash flow situation get worse before it gets better. That catches some people out. Other thing we haven't talked about, I suppose, is landlords. And the Prime Minister last night did talk about they must be meeting on this. It sounded like they were going to announce something tonight, but in his conference this morning he said there's no big announcements for tonight. So maybe that's tomorrow. But again, talk to your landlord early. And thinking about, if you've got a landlord that's got, half a dozen properties, it might be an idea to get in first. Because if, they've got, have to start giving special deals to all their tenants, especially if some of the other tenants are in a different situation and they might be coming to the landlord in 3 months' time, you might find you get a better deal today if you're the only one talking to your landlord. Than if all of them are coming to the landlord at once. And remember, your landlord might owe money to the bank too, and he might be under a bit of pressure. So work something out there. And then again, also mirroring what Shaun's saying in terms of just getting through it, getting your head straight, is as we're talking about here, is making a plan, starting from that budgeting exercise of saying, right, I can do that, and by talking, I can get back all the tax I've already paid. I'm going to find out, am I going to get that $10,000 before June in the next lot? Getting it into your budget and knowing what you're going to do will, even though there might be some pretty tough things on that page, psychologically you're going to be in a much better place that you've got a plan, and right now you're just a headless chook not knowing what to do. So get that plan nutted out soon. That would be the thing I would say.
Yeah, that is some really great advice, guys, and thank you so much for answering the questions that we've received. What we'll do now is we'll do a transcription of those questions and answers. We'll disseminate them out to the BSW Connect mailing lists and Facebook group, and we'll look to hold another one of these in the next few days or early next week, where we might try and get Bridget Green from Bridgelight on, or Mike Jenkins from Commercial Realty, and talk really specifically about that landlords, the wages, those sorts of things, and entitlements. So I want to thank you both again for taking the time today to do this, and we will all talk again soon. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shaun.